Before we begin, understand this. If you're trying to look successful, you're already losing. That sentence alone has destroyed more fortunes than bad investments ever did, and most people won't realize it until it's too late. Here's the uncomfortable truth no one warns you about. The moment people notice you rising, forces begin working to slow you down. Jealousy, expectation, entitlement, scrutiny, all silent, all deadly. The world doesn't attack what it can't see. Most people think wealth announces itself, that it arrives loud, flashing, obvious, cars, watches, vacations, applause. But real power, real money, it enters the room quietly and leaves with the keys. Let me ask you something. Why is it that the people who need you to believe they're rich usually aren't, and the ones who actually control outcomes look painfully ordinary? There's a reason for that, and Machiavelli understood it centuries ago. He warned that visibility creates vulnerability, that the moment you are observed, you can be measured, and the moment you're measured, you can be controlled. Think about that. Most people chase attention thinking it equals opportunity, but attention doesn't create leverage. It creates targets. Every upgrade you display invites an audit. Every luxury you show raises expectations. Every visible win awakens competition you didn't need. And here's the part no motivational video tells you. The world doesn't reward progress, it punishes imbalance. When your lifestyle outpaces your foundation, pressure enters your life. Bills, dependence, obligations. You stop making long-term decisions and start protecting appearances. That's how people get trapped. I learned this lesson not from theory, but from observation. Men who quietly accumulated assets for decades. No social media, no announcements, same routines, same habits, same clothes. They weren't hiding because they were afraid. They were hiding because they were building. While others spent money to feel powerful, they delayed gratification to become powerful. And here's the paradox that destroys egos. The more wealth you display, the less freedom you actually have. You can't downsize without embarrassment. You can't slow down without suspicion. You can't pivot without explaining yourself. You become a prisoner of your own image. Machiavelli would call this a fatal error, because once people think they understand you, they stop fearing you, and when fear disappears, so does your advantage. This is why the most dangerous men don't announce themselves. They don't argue loudly. They don't posture. They don't flex. They observe. They wait. They let others reveal their weaknesses first. In Florence, the most powerful families didn't look powerful. They looked harmless. Merchants, account keepers, advisors. While everyone else fought for recognition, they controlled flows, information, debt. Power moved silently through them like a current, and nothing has changed. In the modern world, the man who drives the same car for 10 years is often the man buying the building the dealership sits on. The man who eats simply is often the man financing the restaurant chain. The man you underestimate is often the one positioning you. Here's the first ruthless lesson. Concealment is not insecurity, it is strategy. When your income rises, your instincts will betray you. You'll want validation, proof, recognition. That urge is natural, and if you obey it, it will cost you everything, because every visible indulgence sends a signal to friends, to family, to competitors, to the system itself, and signals attract interference. But what happens when you resist? What happens when you deliberately remain underestimated? That's where the real game begins, because once people stop watching you, you're free to move. And in the next part, I'll show you how appearing average is the fastest way to become untouchable. Here's a dangerous question. When people look at you, what do they assume? That single assumption determines how freely you move through the world. Most men obsess over upgrading their image. Bigger in presence, louder voice, sharper edges. They want respect now. But Machiavelli would smile at that impatience, because impatience exposes intention, and intention exposes weakness. The truly powerful man cultivates the opposite reaction. He is underestimated, not mocked, not pitied, simply overlooked. And that is the safest position you can occupy, because when people underestimate you, they reveal themselves. They speak too freely. They negotiate carelessly. They show their hand before the cards are even dealt. Underestimation disarms defenses. Think about it. No one guards against what they don't fear. No one blocks a threat they don't recognize. No one competes seriously with someone they've already dismissed. That's not an insult. That's an opening. Most people spend their lives trying to prove something. Prove intelligence. Prove success. Prove worth. But proof invites judgment, and judgment invites limits. The man who stays quiet avoids both. Machiavelli warned that overt displays of strength provoke resistance, but subtle strength creates dependency. If people believe you are harmless, they include you. If they believe you are average, they ignore you. If they believe you are beneath them, they relax. And relaxed people make mistakes. This is where wealth is actually built, not in moments of domination, but in moments of access. Access to information, access to deals, access to timing. The underestimated man hears things others never will. He sees opportunities before they're framed as opportunities. He moves before the crowd even realizes there was a starting line. And here's the cruel irony. The louder you become, the less access you receive. The more you signal ambition, the more doors quietly close. Because no one likes empowering a rival they can already see. But the quiet man, he's invited everywhere. Not because he's impressive, but because he's non-threatening. And that's exactly the role he wants. This is why many of the wealthiest men you'll ever encounter feel underwhelming. No dramatic entrances, no sharp declarations, no desperate need to be acknowledged. They ask questions. They listen. They let others speak themselves into corners. While the loud men fight for dominance, the quiet man studies leverage, and leverage compounds. Here's where most people fail. They mistake being underestimated for being disrespected. So they react emotionally. They correct perceptions. They set the record straight. That impulse destroys the advantage. Because once people recalculate you, the window closes. Machiavelli would never correct an enemy's false assumption. He would let it grow, let it harden, let it blind them. Because a wrong belief left unchallenged becomes a weapon, and the underestimated man uses it ruthlessly. He signs deals others didn't bother reading. He invests before consensus forms. He positions himself quietly while attention flows elsewhere. By the time people notice him, the game is already decided. But here's the tension. Living underestimated requires discipline, restraint, ego control. You'll watch others get praised for things you helped build. You'll see louder men receive credit for quieter victories, and every instinct in you will scream to speak up. That moment is the test, because if you break silence too early, you trade long-term power for short-term validation, and validation never pays dividends. The underestimated man understands something brutal. Respect given too early is unstable. Power revealed too early is challenged. but power revealed after victory. That power is accepted. In the next part, I'll show you how Machiavelli used timing to turn invisibility into dominance, and why revealing yourself at the wrong moment can erase years of quiet progress in seconds. There is a moment that ruins more men than failure ever could. The moment they reveal themselves too early. Machiavelli feared bad timing more than weak enemies, because timing determines whether power is accepted or attacked. Most people assume success is about speed. Move fast, show progress, announce wins. They believe momentum must be visible to be real. That belief is lethal, because visibility before dominance invites resistance, and resistance drains energy that should have compounded quietly. Here's the truth. Power has stages, and revealing yourself in the wrong stage collapses the structure. At the beginning, you are fragile. Your capital is limited. Your influence is narrow. Your position is reversible. This is when silence matters most. But most men do the opposite. They announce new ventures before they're stable. They flex new income before it's durable. They reveal ambition before protection exists. And suddenly, everything becomes harder. Friends ask for favors. Family raises expectations. Competitors take notice. Systems begin watching. You haven't grown stronger. You've simply become visible. Machiavelli warned that premature displays of strength provoke coalitions. Weak enemies unite against what they perceive as rising power. This is why small victories should be hidden, because small victories are not protection. They are provocation. The disciplined man understands timing is leverage. He doesn't announce the move. He waits until the move is irreversible, until the deal is signed, until the asset is locked, until the position cannot be undone. Only then does he allow himself to be seen, and even then, selectively, because power revealed gradually is digested. Power revealed suddenly is resisted. Think about history. Rulers who rose too fast were assassinated. Empires that expanded too loudly attracted enemies. Men who celebrated early invited sabotage. The ones who survived mastered delay. They let others underestimate them long enough that by the time reality surfaced, it felt inevitable. And inevitability neutralizes opposition. This is the cruel patience most people lack. They want acknowledgement now, validation now, proof now. But Machiavelli would say this: if you need applause, you're not ready for power, because applause fades and power lasts. The disciplined man knows when to remain invisible and when to appear unavoidable. That transition is everything. Reveal too soon and you become a target. Reveal too late and you remain irrelevant. The art lies in sensing when resistance no longer matters, when you've built redundancy, when you've secured alternatives, when failure no longer threatens survival. That's when you step forward, not with noise, but with results. And the world accepts results quietly. This is why sudden overnight successes confuse people. They didn't happen overnight. They happened invisibly. Years of preparation concealed beneath ordinary routines. By the time the announcement came, there was nothing left to debate. And here's the twist most people miss. Timing isn't just about when you reveal success. It's about when you reveal intent. Speak your goals too early and you bind yourself to them. People watch, judge, expect. Silence gives flexibility. It allows you to pivot without embarrassment, to abandon paths without explanation, to change direction without resistance. The quiet man can adapt. The loud man must perform. Machiavelli valued adaptability above all else, because rigid men break under pressure. Flexible men survive chaos. And timing creates flexibility, but there's a deeper layer. The longer you remain unseen, the more shocking your emergence becomes. Shock paralyzes opposition. It buys time. It creates confusion. And confusion is a weapon. In the next part, I'll show you how simplicity, not luxury, is the camouflage that allows wealth to grow undisturbed, and why the man who lives modestly often controls far more than he appears to. Here's a rule that sounds harmless, until you understand how dangerous it really is. Luxury attracts friction. Simplicity dissolves it. Most men believe wealth should upgrade their lives. Better clothes, better cars, better places. They call it progress. But Machiavelli would call it exposure, because every visible upgrade redraws your position in the social hierarchy. And hierarchies always trigger reactions: envy from below, competition from the side, suspicion from above. The moment you elevate your lifestyle, you don't just change your comfort, you change how the world treats you. People watch closer. They ask more questions. They expect more access. And expectation is a silent tax. The disciplined man understands this and does something counterintuitive. As his wealth grows, his life stays simple. Not because he can't afford more, but because simplicity is camouflage. A modest life keeps attention low. It keeps requests minimal. It keeps pressure distant. And most importantly, it keeps you underestimated. Machiavelli admired those who appeared ordinary while wielding extraordinary influence, because appearance controls perception, and perception controls behavior. When people think you live simply, they assume your needs are small. They don't imagine hidden leverage. They don't suspect reserves. That miscalculation is priceless. Here's the psychological trap that ruins most men. They confuse comfort with consumption. They believe pleasure must be visible to be real. But true comfort is invisible. It's knowing you can walk away, knowing you don't depend on appearances, knowing you're not trapped maintaining an image. The man who lives simply has options. The man who lives loudly has obligations, and obligations enslave. Luxury introduces fragility, high fixed costs, social pressure, lifestyle inflation. Suddenly, your decisions aren't about growth anymore. They're about maintenance. You stop taking calculated risks. You stop playing long games. You protect the illusion instead of expanding the foundation. Machiavelli warned that rulers who indulged publicly weakened themselves, because indulgence reveals excess, and excess invites challenge. But restraint confuses opponents. The simple man doesn't look like a threat, so no one rushes to contain him, while others bleed money to signal status. He compounds quietly: assets over aesthetics, equity over applause, control over compliments. And here's the cruel irony: the more modest your life appears, the more freedom you actually have. You can relocate without notice. You can pivot without explanation. You can disappear when necessary. Try doing that with a lifestyle that demands constant funding. Simplicity makes you mobile, and mobility is power. This is why some of the most powerful men eat the same meals every day, wear the same clothes, drive the same vehicles, not because they lack taste, but because repetition frees attention. Their minds are focused elsewhere, on systems, on leverage, on timing. While others debate brands, they acquire positions. And here's where the lesson turns ruthless. Living simply doesn't mean living small. It means living strategically. You spend where it multiplies. You save where it signals nothing. You indulge privately, not publicly. Machiavelli understood that secrecy protects advantage. and simplicity is the perfect disguise for secrecy. But this discipline has a cost. You will be misunderstood, underrated, sometimes even disrespected. People will assume you're stagnant, that you're behind, that you never made it, and your ego will beg you to correct them. That urge is the enemy, because the moment you prove them wrong, you give up the disguise, and once the disguise is gone, so is your freedom to build undisturbed. The disciplined man accepts temporary invisibility in exchange for permanent leverage. In the next part, I'll show you why privacy, not secrecy, is the real shield of wealth, and how controlling information about your life is more valuable than controlling money itself. There's a mistake people make when they hear "be discreet." They think it means secrecy, hiding, lying, locking everything away. Machiavelli meant something far more dangerous. He meant control, because secrecy isolates you, but privacy protects you. Secrecy creates paranoia. Privacy creates advantage. The disciplined man doesn't hide his life. He curates what others are allowed to know, and what they don't know is where his power grows. Here's the reality no one wants to admit. Information is leverage long before money ever is. The more people know about you, your income, your plans, your stress, your ambitions, the easier you are to predict. And predictability is weakness. Machiavelli warned that a ruler who could be read could be managed, and a ruler who could be managed would eventually be replaced. Most men give away information freely. They talk to feel connected. They share to feel validated. They overshare to feel important, and in doing so, they surrender control. Every detail you reveal becomes data. Every complaint becomes a pressure point. Every ambition becomes something others can exploit. The private man understands this instinctively. He doesn't announce his next move. He doesn't narrate his progress. He doesn't invite commentary into unfinished plans, because commentary reshapes behavior. The moment people know your goals, you feel watched, judged, measured. Your decisions shift subtly to meet expectations. Privacy keeps your decisions pure. This is why truly wealthy men often feel distant, not cold, not arrogant, just unreachable. They share opinions, not intentions, observations, not plans, results, not processes, and that distance creates mystique. Machiavelli valued mystique because it multiplies authority. When people don't fully understand you, they fill the gaps with assumptions, and assumptions are rarely accurate, which works in your favor. The less others know, the more cautiously they act around you. They hesitate, they guess, they second guess. Meanwhile, you move with certainty. Privacy also shields you from emotional taxation. No constant requests, no explanations, no justifications. You don't owe clarity to people who haven't earned access, and access is the real currency. Here's the brutal truth. Most people don't want to understand your journey. They want to evaluate it, to compare, to compete, to position themselves relative to you. Privacy removes that entire game. It lets you operate outside the social scoreboard. And outside the scoreboard, there are no referees. Machiavelli understood that power grows fastest in ambiguity, when enemies don't know where to strike, when allies don't know what to demand, when observers don't know what to expect. Ambiguity keeps everyone cautious, and cautious people rarely interfere. This is why public ambition is dangerous. It invites opinions. It invites sabotage disguised as advice. It invites pressure. The private man avoids all of it. He builds quietly. He adjusts silently. He reveals only when revealing benefits him. And when he finally speaks, people listen because he doesn't speak often. But here's the tension. Privacy requires discipline. You'll want to explain yourself, defend yourself, clarify misunderstandings. You'll want to be seen as capable, as smart, as progressing, and every time you resist that urge, you strengthen your position, because the man who needs to be understood is not yet powerful. The man who can afford to be misunderstood is dangerous. In the next part, I'll show you how delayed gratification separates those who look rich from those who actually control time, options, and outcomes, and why impatience is the most expensive habit you'll ever have. There's a silent battle happening in every man's mind. Spend now, or control later. Most people don't even realize they're choosing. They just obey the impulse. Machiavelli would call that surrender, because the ability to delay pleasure is the ability to dominate your future. Here's the brutal truth. Wealth is not created by earning more. It's created by waiting longer, waiting to spend, waiting to celebrate, waiting to reveal. Most men get a financial win and immediately convert it into lifestyle. New money becomes new habits become new dependencies, and suddenly freedom shrinks. Delayed gratification breaks that cycle. The disciplined man treats every increase in income as a test, not a reward, a test of restraint, a test of foresight, a test of identity, because identity is where this war is actually fought. Most people don't buy things because they need them. They buy things to become someone, successful, respected, admired. But Machiavelli warned that chasing admiration weakens authority, because admiration is emotional, and emotional power is unstable. The patient man doesn't rush to upgrade his identity. He lets his position upgrade first. While others spend to feel ahead, he invests to actually get ahead. And here's the compounding effect most people never experience. Every desire you delay increases your leverage. You become less reactive, less desperate, less controllable. Markets can't rush you. People can't pressure you. Trends can't tempt you, because you don't need the outcome immediately. Need creates weakness. The man who needs success now will sacrifice tomorrow for today. The man who can wait dictates terms. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He knew impatience exposed rulers. They rushed decisions, overextended resources, made visible mistakes. Patience allowed rivals to exhaust themselves. And that same dynamic exists now. The loud spenders burn out. The quiet accumulators endure. Delayed gratification turns money into time. And time is the only resource that multiplies power. Think about it. If you can wait, you can negotiate harder. If you can wait, you can walk away. If you can wait, you can choose better moments. Impatience forces bad deals. This is why flashy wealth often disappears. It was never rooted in patience. It was rooted in urgency. Urgency to prove something. Urgency to display progress. Urgency to feel ahead. The disciplined man feels no urgency. He knows the timeline favors him as long as he doesn't betray it. But this discipline comes at a cost. You will feel behind. While others display milestones, you stay quiet. While others celebrate publicly, you delay privately. And the ego hates silence. It whispers doubts. It demands recognition. It asks, what's the point if no one sees? That voice is the final test, because if you can ignore it, you unlock something rare, freedom from impulse. And freedom from impulse is freedom from manipulation. In the next part, I'll show you how selective generosity, not kindness, cements long-term power, and why helping everyone is the fastest way to weaken your position. There's a lie that sounds virtuous. Be generous with everyone. Machiavelli would have considered that dangerous advice, because generosity without strategy creates dependence without loyalty, and dependence breeds entitlement. The disciplined man is generous, but selectively, not out of cruelty, out of calculation, because every resource you give away signals something about your position. If you give too freely, you appear abundant but careless. If you give emotionally, you appear manipulable. If you give to everyone, you become drained. Machiavelli warned that indiscriminate generosity weakens authority. It invites expectation instead of respect. The powerful man understands this. He doesn't reward need. He rewards alignment. He doesn't rescue people from their mistakes. He invests in those who multiply outcomes, and this distinction changes everything. Most people give to feel good, to be liked, to be seen as moral. But power doesn't operate on morality alone. It operates on incentives. The selective man gives in ways that strengthen his position. Time to those who respect it. Resources to those who create return. Opportunities to those who prove discretion. Everyone else receives distance. This sounds harsh until you understand the alternative. Uncontrolled generosity trains people to take. Controlled generosity trains people to contribute. Machiavelli knew that favors create obligations, but only if they are rare. When generosity becomes common, it loses its force. People stop appreciating it. They start demanding it. And the moment generosity becomes a duty, power is lost. The disciplined man avoids this trap. He helps quietly, privately, without spectacle, no announcements, no public credit, because public generosity creates public expectations. Private generosity creates loyalty, and loyalty compounds. Those who benefit quietly protect you quietly. Those who benefit loudly embarrass you later. This is why truly powerful men rarely advertise charity. They understand visibility converts goodwill into leverage for others, not for them. Machiavelli valued reputation, but controlled reputation. Be known as fair. Be known as restrained. Be known as unpredictable. Never be known as endlessly giving, because predictable generosity is exploitable. Here's where most men fail. They confuse boundaries with selfishness. They feel guilt when they say no, but guilt is a lever others can pull. The disciplined man removes that lever. He decides in advance who receives access, who receives help, who receives nothing. And once the decision is made, emotion is removed. This clarity protects resources. It also protects respect, because people value what is scarce, and scarcity creates gravity. Those who receive selective generosity understand its weight. They don't waste it. They don't expect it again. They don't forget it. And that's how networks are built. Not large, but loyal. Not visible, but effective. In the next part, I'll reveal why never explaining yourself is one of the most unsettling power moves in existence, and how silence in the face of misunderstanding often accelerates dominance instead of destroying it. There is a reflex that exposes weakness faster than poverty ever could. The urge to explain. Explain your choices. Explain your silence. Explain your restraint. Explain why you didn't do what others expected. Machiavelli would have warned you against this impulse immediately, because the moment you explain yourself, you place others above you. You accept their judgment as valid. You invite their approval as necessary. You hand them authority over your decisions, and authority, once handed away, is rarely returned. The disciplined man understands something unsettling. Power does not argue. Power does not justify. Power does not clarify. It acts. Most men explain because they fear being misunderstood. They fear appearing weak, wrong, or behind. But misunderstanding is not always a threat. Sometimes it is protection. When people don't fully understand you, they hesitate. They don't know your limits. They don't know your intentions. They don't know how to pressure you. Uncertainty freezes opposition. Machiavelli valued silence not because it was polite, but because it was destabilizing. A man who does not explain himself cannot be easily manipulated, because manipulation relies on access. Access to emotion, access to insecurity, access to intention. Explanations reveal all three. Think about how often people demand explanations. Why didn't you respond? Why didn't you invest? Why didn't you upgrade? Why didn't you help? Every why is a probe, a test of boundaries, and every explanation you give weakens those boundaries. The disciplined man answers with results, or not at all. He doesn't defend his timeline. He doesn't justify his silence. He doesn't narrate his restraint. He lets others draw conclusions, and most of those conclusions are wrong, which works in his favor. Because wrong assumptions create missteps. People underestimate him, misread him, position themselves poorly around him, while they're reacting to a version of him that doesn't exist. He's building quietly behind the scenes. This is psychologically unbearable for most people. They want clarity, they want closure, they want reassurance. The disciplined man offers none, not out of arrogance, but out of control, because explanations create commitments. Once you explain your reasoning, you're expected to remain consistent. Silence preserves flexibility. It allows you to change direction without apology, to adjust strategy without contradiction, to evolve without resistance. Machiavelli prized adaptability above reputation, because reputation locks you in. Adaptability frees you. Here's the paradox. The less you explain yourself, the more people project power onto you. They assume there's a reason, a plan, an advantage they can't see. Silence magnifies authority, but there is a cost. You will be misunderstood, judged unfairly, sometimes dismissed, and your ego will want to correct the narrative. That moment is the trap, because correcting the narrative means you're now playing defense, and the disciplined man never plays defense publicly. He lets outcomes speak, because outcomes end debates instantly. In the next part, I'll show you how choosing battles invisibly, not publicly, allows you to win without confrontation, and why the most decisive victories often look like accidents to everyone else. There is a childish idea of power that ruins men, that power must be visible, that victory must be dramatic, that enemies must be confronted face to face. Machiavelli would call that foolish theater, because the strongest victories leave no witnesses. The disciplined man does not fight publicly. Public conflict creates pride. Pride creates escalation. Escalation creates losses. Instead, he chooses battles that never look like battles at all. He doesn't confront rivals. He outgrows them. He doesn't argue. He repositions. He doesn't seek revenge. He removes leverage. And when the outcome finally arrives, no one knows how it happened. That's the point. Machiavelli warned that open conflict invites counterattack, but silent maneuvering ends opposition before it forms. Most people reveal their enemies too early. They complain, they gossip, they announce resistance, and in doing so, they energize the very thing they want to defeat. The disciplined man does the opposite. He lets opponents exhaust themselves. He allows egos to overextend. He watches patterns repeat, because most people defeat themselves when no one interferes. While others waste energy proving points, he builds alternatives, new income streams, new alliances, new positions, quietly, so that when pressure comes, he doesn't resist. He simply steps aside and lets gravity do the work. This is why many powerful men appear lucky. Opportunities fall into their lap. Competitors disappear. Obstacles dissolve. But luck had nothing to do with it. They prepared exits long before confrontation was necessary. They never needed to win the argument, only the position. Machiavelli understood that domination without resistance is the purest form of power. If no one fights you, no one can stop you. This is why the disciplined man avoids public enemies. Public enemies require public defense. Private maneuvering requires none. And here's the ruthless truth. Most battles are ego traps. They drain time, they drain focus, they drain capital. The disciplined man asks one question before engaging: does this move increase my leverage or just satisfy my pride? If it's pride, he walks away, because pride is loud and expensive. Leverage is silent and profitable. You will watch others celebrate small victories. Arguments won, status defended, respect demanded. Meanwhile, the disciplined man wins something else entirely: freedom. Because when you win invisibly, no one plots against you. They don't see you as a threat until it's too late. And now we reach the final lesson. The one most people misunderstand. The one that ties everything together, because all this silence, restraint, privacy, patience, it's not about hiding forever, it's about choosing when to be seen. In the final part, I'll reveal when the disciplined man finally steps into the light, and why, at that moment, no one dares challenge him. There comes a moment when silence is no longer strategic, when staying invisible limits expansion instead of protecting it. Machiavelli understood this moment better than anyone. Power hidden forever stagnates. Power revealed too early is destroyed. The disciplined man waits for a very specific condition: irreversibility. He steps into the light only when his position cannot be undone, when income is diversified, when assets are locked, when alternatives exist, when failure no longer threatens survival. Only then does he allow himself to be seen. And even then, he reveals results, not process, because process invites imitation. Results invite acceptance. This is why sudden wealth shocks people. Where did he come from? How did he do it? When did this happen? The truth is, it happened quietly. Years of invisibility created one moment of inevitability, and inevitability disarms opposition. At this stage, people don't challenge you. They adjust to you. Machiavelli wrote that men accept new power when resisting it feels pointless. That's the goal, not admiration, not applause. Compliance. The disciplined man doesn't announce dominance. He lets circumstances announce it for him. A signed deal, a closed acquisition, a move no one can reverse. By the time people react, the structure has already shifted. And here's the final paradox. When you finally reveal yourself, you don't look loud. You look inevitable, calm, unbothered, grounded, because you are no longer trying to become powerful. You already are. This is why the truly wealthy don't change much when they're discovered. No sudden ego, no dramatic shift. They were living this way long before others noticed. The discipline of disguise is complete. And now you understand the real lesson. Getting rich without anyone noticing is not about hiding success. It's about earning the right to be seen. At the end of all this silence, restraint, patience, and control, you gain something far more valuable than attention. You gain freedom, freedom to move, freedom to choose, freedom to walk away. And freedom is the only luxury that never loses value.